I'd like you all to think about the word disability. What does that word mean to you? How do you feel? What do you think of? I'd like you now to change that word to learning disability. Does anything change? Maybe it's the same. I wonder if any of you thought of success, because I did. Higher education is becoming more of a mandatory institution, and as a result, those of us with learning disabilities are facing a disparity. So I'm here to have the conversation. Why do I care? Well, as some of you may have guessed, I have a learning disability, and I have faced stigma in higher education. Why should you care? I need your participation to create a more inclusive and motivating higher education environment for those of us with learning disabilities. Let's talk about me. Growing up, I was the girl that multiplied 1/2 by 1/2 and got 1/8. I was a little slow, and I sometimes had trouble having a conversation because I either forgot what you just said, what I just said, or what I was about to say. And I was a dumb blonde persona. I was an airhead, and I talked like a valley girl. Until my senior year of high school, when I was diagnosed with other specified neurodevelopmental disorder, DSM-5 315.8. This was the best thing that's ever happened to me because I wasn't stupid. Now behind me is my memory. The SS stands for standard scores, and then there's a percentile. Most of my memory resides in the borderline category of memory. This is the second lowest category out of 7 categories. The higher being below average, average, above average, superior, and very superior. One of my memories, my delayed memory, even resides in the lowest category of memory, called very poorly developed. Now, instead of trying to explain this to you using definitions and jargon, I'd rather go through some examples about how my brain works. So I'd like you all to add 7 plus 9. I'm sure you've done it. I haven't. And that's because I couldn't use my fingers. So this is how I count. There's 5 and 9, and there's 5 and 7. There's 2 left over in 7 and 4 left over in 9, and that's 16. I cannot count without my fingers, and I cannot add past 10. As a result, I need a calculator on all my exams. And I'm sure you remember growing up, you would add on your fingers. 1 plus 3 is 4, 2 plus 3 is 5. Well, that initial way that I learned it, I became fixated on. And it's hard for me to move forward. Now, here's another example. My best friend lives 40 minutes away from me. There's about 3 different routes to get to her house, each only having about 4 or 5 different directions, so it's relatively simple. I still cannot get to her house after 10 years of being her best friend without a GPS, because I will get lost. Lastly, you may be wondering what this cool-looking tattoo is on my hand. Well, it's not a tattoo. They're words I've created, hooks in my brain, in order to stand before you today to have this conversation. Without these words, I would be slow, and I would forget what I just said or what I was about to say. Now, enough about my memory. My experience in higher education has been one filled of mentorship, and I don't know where I'd be without any of my mentors. And I faced scrutiny of my intellect, making me feel like that dumb blonde persona I once identified myself as. I am pre-health, which means I've taken math and science classes, which aren't necessarily my strong suit, and I made Dean's List last semester. So it's time to talk about this professor-student relationship. There are no victims, there are no culprits. Everyone's to blame. And this is how we're going to improve. Students, I'd like you to advocate for yourselves. This means you have to become secure in your disability so that you can sit before your professor and tell them what is going on. I understand this may be difficult because even I still face challenges today. I continuously hear this same quote from friends, family, professors, students, and that quote is, "I must have that disorder too," jokingly, in reference to my memory disorder. Now, I understand you may forget to walk the dog or forget to lock the car, but I don't necessarily think it's the same thing. Students, in addition to advocating, you must advocate with a plan. Your professors do not know how to specifically help you. They are not learning specialists. As a result, you know what's best for you. So, behind me is my plan. These are my mnemonics. This may look like a cheat sheet to some of you. However, this is in fact my own code. In order for this to be approved on an exam, someone from the class would have to read it and not be able to get any information from it to help them on the exam. Without this code that I've created, I would have not gotten the 97% that I did on this upper level bio test. In fact, I don't even know if I would have passed. Now, professors, it's your turn. I don't know if you know this, but you have the ultimate power. If I came to you and asked for mnemonics or extra time on an exam, you could give it to me. And I'm going to say, I understand. If you feel that you need additional documentation from a doctor saying that I need this additional aid, and I'm going to argue that that's going to take time. Class time lost, test time lost, quiz time lost. It's time lost, where I may be at a disadvantage. Professors, you may be wondering, well, how do I know if the student is not taking advantage of the system? Well, if I have a documented disability, how could I be taking advantage of the system when I'm already at a disadvantage? Professors, I also ask you to listen. And I ask you to listen without the bias that I am any less capable than those who do not have learning disabilities. Like I said, you are not a learning specialist, and therefore you cannot judge my capability. Now, for everyone, you may be wondering to yourself, this girl's pre-health and she has a memory disorder. How is that going to work? Well, I can't memorize, that's true. So for me to learn, I have to understand material. And I have to understand it as a story or a pattern. And then I won't forget it. So now I'll let you decide if you still think I wouldn't be good in the health environment. Those of us with learning disabilities are capable. We will succeed in the real world. And I need your participation to create a more inclusive and motivating higher education environment for those of us with learning disabilities. Professors, students, it's time to work together. Because as students, we are your future, and we all deserve equal opportunity. Thank you.